Good morning. We're in a series called King of Hearts, and that's God's big desire, is that we would make him king of our hearts. A lot easier said than done. When we make a commitment to Jesus at salvation, so that experience where we recognize that we are desperate because of our sin state to put our trust in Jesus because of what he's done for us on the cross, that's the gospel. When we commit to him, that means we've given him our heart. But in that initial giving him of our heart doesn't necessarily make him king of our hearts. That's a decision that happens every day. It's not a one-time and done. It's a every day we redo that commitment again and again to make him king of our hearts. So in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus' most salient sermon, Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7, Jesus tells us what that looks like. He first addressed the condition of the heart he wants to bless. Those are kind of the Beatitudes. Blessed, blessed, blessed. The condition of the heart he wants to bless, that one that will yield to him and surrender to him. And then he talks about the goal of the heart that he wants to transform. And we'll touch on that in a little bit. We'll remind ourselves of what that looks like. God wants to do something in you that brings you to a place where you reflect him well. How's that goal working? He wants to bring you to a place where you reflect him well. That's the goal. And then in chapter 6 and 7 of Matthew, he wants to address the threats to the heart that he wants to protect. So there are 9 threats that Jesus addresses, and today we're going to look at the threat of a judgmental spirit. The threat of a judgmental spirit. How do you like it when someone judges you? Or you feel judged? Anybody like that? Yeah, I don't think most of us do. It kind of repels us, doesn't it? Looks can be deceiving. Don't judge beauty's in the eye. Yeah. Beauty's only. Yeah, there's all this sense that, right, we can make a first judgment, and that first judgment, it may be right, but it may be completely wrong, and we're quick to do that. There's a gal by the name of Dodie Garrett that she was a school teacher, and when she retired from teaching, she thought, I want to go across America. American history was one of the things she taught, so I want to see these places I've talked about. So she bought herself a Chevy pickup and a camper trailer, and off she went. And while she was in California, she was coming on I-5 around one of the big turns close to Sacramento, and the fuel pump in her truck went out. And so she limps it to the side of the road. It's rush hour traffic. Cars are buzzing by, and even though she's creating a little bit of a traffic jam herself, nobody wants to stop and help. And she's just exasperated. She's tired, and she's a little frightened by being so close to all these rushing cars. On the backside of her camper, she leans up against it and prays, God, would you please just send me an angel, preferably one with mechanical ability? Within 4 minutes, a Harley-Davidson motorcycle pulls up behind her, and she says, the most enormous man I've ever seen gets off the bike. He's got long black hair, leather jacket, and massive beard. And she's a little frightened. He walks right past her, opens the hood, and starts tinkering inside. A little bit later, he steps out, flags down a larger truck, puts a tow chain on her vehicle, and pulls the 56-foot-long rig completely off the freeway, off to a side street where he could continue his work. Gets back in the hood of the car, fixed the fuel pump. By this time, she's still a little bit flustered by the whole deal, especially what it says on the back of his jacket. Hails angels. She got her angel. She says, sir, thank you so much for your help. And he looks her straight in the eyes and says, ma'am, just don't judge a book by its cover. Have a good day. Hops on his Harley and rides away. Right, that's what we want to be able to do, right, is to recognize maybe at first blush we might be kind of judgmental, but we want to be able to back ourselves away from that and really not judge a book by its cover. But how often are we prone to do exactly that? Even though we know to be on the receiving side of judgment is never, ever a pleasant, winsome experience. Jesus will address that today in our text. Jesus is always wanting to draw us to a deeper awareness of our interior world, our thoughts, emotions, motives, desires, and will, which creates our sense of self, who we think we are, not based on culture, but based on Christ himself in us. Not based on the world, but based on what God's word says about us. Not based on human reward, but based on spiritual reward. You see, Jesus is very interested in human flourishing. It's what he wants for us. He knows that a judgmental spirit will sabotage the relational acumen needed for flourishing. So today, as we look at what Jesus wants to tell us, we're going to see three things. We're going to see the threat. That's what Jesus wants us to do. You got to see the threat before you can break the threat. And if you can break the threat, it's only because you successfully corrected the threat. So we're going to look at all those. I think whenever I think about a judgmental spirit and this context of what Jesus is telling us, we want to begin to recognize that part of what Jesus wants us to see is the threats, right? There are threats that are all around. A lot of times we pay attention to the exterior threat, and sometimes those are genuinely there. There are things that are threats to our spiritual well-being that come from outside. In fact, in a couple weeks, we'll deal with one of those. In Matthew 7, verse 15, Jesus says, watch out, which is kind of a look out for a threat kind of language, right? Watch out for false teachers. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they're ferocious wolves, right? He's talking about an exterior threat. But today's topic is not exterior. Today's topic is something that could occupy some portion of your heart and soul, and it is an interior threat. And it may be attacking you from the inside and distorting how you see and experience your own existence, your own relationship as it is related to others, and it may be affecting the community that you're in. And it can be a cancer that is genuinely a threat to our spiritual flourishing and vitality. So let's take a look at our three areas. As we do so, let's just first look at the text that Jesus gives us. In Matthew 7, 1 through 6, he says, do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. With a measure you use, it will be measured right back to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say, let me take the speck out of your eye, bang, 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 when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye. You'll see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. Okay, we're going to get that little riddle at the end, which is kind of like, what? We'll get to that at the end. I'll help you understand what Jesus is talking about. But let's just take them one at a time. Let's look at seeing the threat. It's the first thing that Jesus wants us to recognize we've got to do if we're ever going to correct the threat. Seeing the threat. The word that Jesus uses here in the Greek for judge is krino. And it's very flexible. It can mean to evaluate or assess, which is not how Jesus is using it here. Or it can mean to self-righteously blame, criticize, and condemn, which is how Jesus is using it in this context. The kind of judgment that Jesus is exposing is that which sees the other person as less than ourselves and wishes to castigate the person who is the target of our judgment. This is very much in contrast to the discernment, krino, healthy judgment that Jesus consistently is promoting in the scriptures call us to, in order to discern good from evil and right from wrong, and the ensuing spiritual acceptance that seeks to embrace the sinner and reject the sin, the toxic, evil behavior or possible ideology. Do you remember how Jesus has already, in the Sermon on the Mount, admonished us to treat others? Remember in chapter 5, he gave 6, I called them case studies. It's where he had this little recipe. He says, you've heard that it was said, but I tell you, remember that? You've heard that it said, do not murder. And anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you, anyone who's angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Right? Remember that? And you've heard that it said, do not commit adultery. But I tell you, anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. In both cases, can you see how Jesus is concerned about the interior world? He doesn't want to just check a box. I ain't killed anybody. He wants us to deal with the anger we're holding inside. He's not wanting us to check a box that says, I haven't slept with anybody else's wife. He wants us to deal with the lust that we hold inside. He's dealing with the interior world because he knows that's the place where transformation has got to come from. So he's always concerned about that. The crescendo of that whole juxtaposition, those 6 case studies, is in verse 43 through 48, where he says, you've heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Now, notice the connection. That you may be children of your Father in heaven. Do you see the identity connection? This is huge. Begin to see yourself differently, he's saying, about God. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and he causes his sun to rise on the evil and good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even the pagans do that? And then he culminates with this statement. What I'm saying is, grow up. Your kingdom subjects, now live like it. Live out your God-given identity. Live generously and graciously to others the way God lives toward you. See, he's wanting a transformation of our very identity, how we see ourselves. The reason this is because Jesus wants us to see if there is a judgmental spirit within ourselves. Jesus is driving us towards greater self-awareness. You see, this is the deal. When you see yourself differently, you can begin to behave yourself differently. If I see my true identity as a child of God, a representative of Him, I begin to behave differently. But if I can't see myself differently, I'm going to behave the same old way. You see, what Jesus wants is He wants us to see ourselves as invitational ambassadors of His kingdom, of His family. You see, we're not trying to keep people out. We're trying to bring people in. And that happens maybe most saliently, most powerfully, whether or not they feel accepted by us or judgment from us. How do you see yourself? So as we look at ourselves and we kind of think about these, let's just kind of unpack this unseeing a bit more. There's a couple things that I think Jesus wants us to see. He wants to see, first of all, that a judgmental spirit backfires and boomerangs. The second thing, he wants us to see that a judgmental spirit blinds and blocks. Let's look at them one at a time. The first one, a judgmental spirit backfires and boomerangs. So, right, the first verse in chapter 7, do not judge or you will backfire, be judged. For in the same way you judge others, boomerang, you will be judged. In the measure you use, it'll be measured right back to you. It'll backfire. It'll boomerang. The boomerang was invented by Aborigines in Australia thousands of years ago. There had to be a lot of trial and error with that, right? Let's throw this stick. Well, let's whittle away a little bit, see what it does now. Let's whittle some more, see what it does now. You know, I wonder if first time it was like, you know, Well, backfired. Yeah, it came right back to me. Jesus is saying that's what it is. The Message Bible says it like this. He says, don't pick on people, jump on their faults, don't jump on their failures, criticize their faults, unless, of course, you want the same treatment. That critical spirit has a way of boomeranging, coming right back to you. You see, what I think Jesus wants us to see is that this kind of behavior, judgmental behavior, is a threat to ourselves. It's something we do to others, but it threatens our own flourishing. Let's look at a few other passages where Jesus and his followers continue to talk about this in order to see just how well rooted this conviction is in all of the New Testament, in Jesus and all of those that followed him. A parallel passage, remember we talked about that last week. A parallel passage is another gospel. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. John's kind of an outlier. Matthew, Mark, and Luke are all what's called synoptic gospels. They've got a lot of repetition. So there's a lot of parallel passages where Jesus is saying something very similar or sometimes exactly the same. Parallel passage, Luke chapter 6, Jesus says, "Do not judge and you will not be judged. Do not condemn." Oh my gosh. Do not condemn and you will not be condemned. I just got an extra start on that one. Ever felt condemned by somebody? How's that feel? Not very good, does it? If you were a convicted criminal and someone said that you're condemned to the gas chamber, you're condemned to the electric chair, you'd feel what? What you would feel is no hope. That's what condemnation creates. A no hope experience. When someone condemns you, you feel like, there's no over this relationship. It's when you want to bail. It's when you want to quit. It's when you want to give up. Why? Because there's no hope. The Apostle Paul in Romans chapter 14 says, "You then, why do you judge your brother or sister? Or why do you treat them with," and this is the word I want us to think about, "contempt? For we will all stand before God's judgment seat." I mean, he says we all will get the privilege and the challenge and the weight of standing before the only one who can judge us fully, accurately. And if we have trusted Jesus as our Savior because of what he's done, he's taken our judgment on himself. That's the good news. If we've taken that, we've received him, we have nothing to fear when we stand before God's judgment seat. But he says equalizes. Why do we think we can take God's role? Why do we think we can sit in his seat and judge others and treat them with contempt? Now, this isn't the first time Jesus has addressed contempt. So go back to the 6 case studies. Remember the first one I reminded you of? You've heard it said, "Do not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you, anyone who's angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment." Then he ups the ante and he gives contemptuous language. He says, anyone who says to a brother or sister, "Raka," will be answerable to the court. And anyone who says, "You fool," will be in danger of the fire of hell. Both those terms are contemptuous terms. They degrade and they separate someone from their worth. It's telling someone you have no value. What does judgment do? It creates a no hope, no value experience in the relationship. James, the half-brother of Jesus, says, don't, and this is the word I want us to think about, criticize and speak evil about each other. Dear brothers, if you do, you'll be fighting against God's law of loving one another. Only he who made the law is rightly judge among us. So what right do you have to judge and criticize others? Whenever we criticize someone, we tell them basically that we have no respect. When we stand in judgment of others, it sends a message of condemnation, of contempt, and of no respect. And I would say none of us like it. None of us want it, and it never draws us to the person giving it, does it? It repels us. Jesus knows this. And he wants us to investigate, look closely at our interior world, because even though we hate it ourselves, we may be guilty of it ourselves. He wants us to see. He wants us to see if by some chance it's backfiring and doing something in me, because it will contaminate. It messes with my own relationship. It distorts my own quality of life. And when it happens, when I'm doing it, it puts a chip on my shoulder. And you begin to feel the hopelessness that you're delivering. You begin to feel being devalued as you devalue others. You begin to feel disrespect as you disrespect others. You find yourself rehearsing in your head a little series of things going on. Let me give you the context in which you can catch this. Would you like to catch it? Because it happens. Would you like to catch it before it gets ugly? Would you like to catch it before you deliver the blow? Would you like to catch it before you cut someone down to size? Here's where you can catch it. In the mundane moments of life, you're mowing the lawn, you're doing the dishes, you're on Highway 99. You're doing something that doesn't require concentration because you do it so naturally. In those spaces, listen. Listen to what thoughts bubble to the surface. Maybe it sounds something like this. This is what I'll tell them. I'll stick it to them. Just wait till I get the chance. I'll put them in their place. What's never happened to you? Listen. Listen and catch it. You see, Jesus wants us to see it so we can break it. And if you don't see it, you won't break it. You won't break it. Let's look at the next one. The second thing that it does is about our blind spots. Jesus says, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention? Now that's going to be the place of liberation. It's going to be a place of liberation. This little pay attention is exactly what we do need to do, and he's saying we're not doing. To the plank in your own eye, how can you say to your brother, let me get this back out of your eye, when the whole time there's a plank in your own eye? So when we learn to pay attention, we learn that we can break the critical, judgmental spirit inside of us. Paying attention. Most of us pay attention like this. We're a little slow, me included. You're a little slow. So in the process, because the critical thing for spiritual formation really is learning to have greater self-awareness. Most of us gain self-awareness by looking in the rearview mirror. We see what we did do and go, oh, wow, didn't handle that very well. Oh, I wish I wouldn't have said that. Oh, I could have been more kind. Ever have that happen? Right? In retrospect, Kierkegaard said, life can only be understood backwards, but unfortunately, it's got to be lived forwards. So when I look back and I say, oh, that's not self-awareness, that's delayed awareness. What happens when you begin to pay attention to what God's doing, pay attention to self-awareness and spirit awareness, you're walking in step with the Spirit, what begins to happen is you start catching yourself in the moment, you say it and you go, get that back. I'm sorry, right? In the moment, you find yourself saying things that are critical, that are condescending, that have an air of prejudice to it. You're saying something that's inappropriate. You're saying something that's ineffectual, but you catch it, but it was a little too late. That is still not self-awareness, but you're getting there, right? It's no longer just in the rearview mirror. It's now in real time. As you progress in your awareness of Jesus, His presence, His purposes, as you change the way you see yourself, you can now change the way you behave yourself, and you see it before it happens. I'm gonna not say that. I'm gonna hold my tongue. I'm going to think before I speak. I'm going to be slow to speak and quick to listen. Now you have self-awareness. See it? Jesus wants to build up our ability to pay attention, pay attention not to just what comes out of our mouth or what we did say, but what we're thinking about saying, what we're thinking about doing. And we gain a much richer ability to arrest what's toxic and ineffectual. Tom Knight, the British children's author, says, isn't it funny when the other fellow takes a long time to do something, he's so slow? When I take a long time to do something, I'm thorough. When the other fellow doesn't do it, he's so lazy. When I don't do it, I was busy. When the other fellow does it without being told, he is overstepping his bounds. When I do it without being told, that's initiative. When the other fellow states his opinion strongly, he is so bullheaded. When I state my opinion strongly, I'm firm. When the other fellow overlooks a few rules of etiquette, he is so rude. When I skip a few rules, I'm doing my own thing. Isn't it kind of funny that we can see one thing for us, but saddle somebody else with a critical, condemning conclusion, even though it's the same thing? When you finally see it, you're self-aware and you're spirit-aware. You begin to see yourself differently, which can empower you to behave yourself differently. The second thing that we have to realize is that it's not only bad for me, right? When I do this thing that boomerangs and it backfires, it's not just bad for me, it's also bad for community. It's not just bad for me, it's also bad for community. Larry Crabb, in one of his beautifully well-written books, author, Christian counselor, says, C.S. Lewis once told a graduating class at Cambridge University that no temptation would face them greater than the urge and temptation to do what? To have an inner ring of community that was special because it excluded others. Isn't it interesting? You find something that you don't particularly like about Joe. Well, it's comforting to find somebody else who also doesn't like Joe. Now we have an inner ring. It's a community of two people who exclude Joe. Something deep within us feels justified in our disdain for Joe and comforted in the fellowship of someone who feels the same way. We experience a sense of belonging here by not belonging there and by spending time with people who don't belong there either. Are you with me? The only thing worse than being condemned, criticized, or disrespected by one person is to be condemned, criticized, and disrespected by a whole group of people. God forbid that it's the church. Because when that posture is given, you feel hopeless. You feel devalued. And you feel disrespected. And if you want to change it, the first step is to see it. I got to see it if I want to break it. And Jesus wants us to be able to break this tendency to look at others with a condescending spirit. And when we do that, all of a sudden we begin to develop self-awareness because we've spent some time doing self-examination. Self-examination is the ability and the exercise that helps us to more readily recognize the parts of ourselves that are attached to our flesh. Those would be things like impatience, a critical spirit, a condemning language, lack of kindness, quickness to judge. And as we recognize our flesh, we can begin to detach ourselves from our flesh, break those things that are coupled with it. So Jesus wants us to correct. He wants us to bring correction. When we do that, we see the last portion of what he says here. You know, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, then you will see clearly to remove the speck. Now I want you to see something here, right? Judgment, all judgment is not bad. Some judgment is needed and appropriate, right? Jesus said in John chapter 7, verse 47, he said, do not judge by appearance, but judge rightly. Krino, both times. Judge rightly. So it's not the absence of, it's not erasing discernment, it's increasing delivery. It's not erasing the discernment that I need to judge and differentiate between good and evil and right and wrong and what needs to happen and what needs to be said and if someone needs a little pressing into. But it's how I bring that delivery that makes the world of difference. And notice what he says here. When I've taken the plank out of my eye, then I can see clearly now the plank is gone. No more obstacles in my way. Right? He says, first deal with the obstacle in your own life, and then you can take the speck out of your brother's eye. At my house, my wife is so good. She's one of my speck removers. It's so nice. It's so helpful. And I'm constantly getting stuff in my eyes. And I've got like 6 pairs of safety glasses. And so I'll be out with a chainsaw. And she says, do you have your glasses on? Glasses? Great idea. Or I'm in the garage and I've got my skill saw. Do you have your glasses on? Great idea. But occasionally, because I don't always have my glasses on, I'll get something in my eye. And isn't that a deal breaker? Right? I mean, you get something in your eye, Jesus' illustration, a speck of sawdust. It just takes a speck and it's game over. Right? I mean, like, if you get something in your eyes, like, it's okay, I've got it. It's okay, I've got everything okay, right? I got it handled. No, it's like, I can't, you do help me. Just crying. And do you want someone with a plank coming over to help? Or tweezers, right? Something more gentle. Jesus wants you and I to be able to help a brother or sister with a speck in their eye. And it takes discernment to do so, not a plank. Let's look at 4 ways. 4 ways to correct, because once we can break it, we can say, okay, I see this as an issue for me. I can break this now. I can correct it with 4 steps. Those 4 steps are really a commitment to practice. And all throughout our series so far, we've been talking about the replacement for all of these threats, the way to navigate ourselves through 9 threats that Jesus gives us. The way to do that is through our practices. Spiritual practices. In the beginning of chapter 6, what did Jesus say? He said, that when you give to the needy, do not announce with trumpets, like the hypocrites do. Right? He gave 3 juxtapositions, 3 stories of how the hypocrites love to get public appraisal and approval and encouragement by what they're doing that's so good. But they're doing it for men and they've received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. When you pray, go into your closet and close the door. When you fast, do not announce it do not make it look like you're miserable. But put oil in your head and wash your face so it'll not be obvious to others that you're fasting. Right? In every case, he says, this place of solitude, my personal, individual, quiet space with Jesus, I hope you're having it because everything about your spiritual journey is dependent on that space and time, except for your salvation, which you receive as a gift, unmerited. But if you want that salvation to grow, you have to have time with Jesus. Out of that time, out of that private space, I decide to be a generous person instead of a stingy person. Out of that private space, I have a rich conversation with God every day and sprinkled throughout my day. Out of that private space, I decide to fast, to say no, to set down one appetite, to develop a greater hunger for God. Out of my solitude, I practice giving and praying and fasting and forgiving, and I find liberation. Here Jesus is saying to us, in that private space, consider how you see yourself so you can change how you behave yourself. And the first thing he wants us to practice is humility. Humility. How do you get humility? Oh, for those who have it, it comes from their many years of plank removal. None of us naturally know how to be non-judgmental. We're judgmental by nature. We're critical by nature. And maybe our self-criticism is some of the worst of all. We feel it, we give it. It's by a transformed life, by being with the one who loves us unconditionally, that I begin to love others unconditionally. It's by being embraced in His mercy that I am able to give away mercy to others. And when I recognize I am as guilty as sin as that, all of a sudden now, because I've pulled it out a number of times, I can set it down. Here's a little definition of humility. Extra credit, not in your notes, so get a pen if you want to keep it. This is my definition. Humility is the ability to live dependently on God, interdependently on others, with a passion to serve anybody. Okay, let's think about that for a little bit. The first thing, it's my ability to live dependently on God. What does that look like? That looks like, for me, it looks like, oh, Jesus. Jesus, would you, Lord, help me to have your eyes to see the people I encounter today. Lord, would you help me to have ears to hear like you would want me to the stories I will encounter today. Lord, help me to elevate others above myself today. I need you to do that. That's what it looks like for me. Dependent on my vertical relationship with Him. And then horizontally, what that looks like for me is oftentimes with a community of people that I know and trust very well because I'm doing life with them, I say something like, hey, if there's anything that you see in me that doesn't square with Jesus, you have permission to point it out to me. Because I might have blind spots. So if you see something, you can say something to me. Right? Now, that's not the permission you give to a stranger, right? But it should be the permission you give to someone who says they love Jesus and they love you, and they've displayed the gentleness, the humility, that you can trust them with it. That should happen within community. And then, with a passion to serve anybody. This is kind of where the rubber meets the road. I got this person that's in my community. He's in my neighborhood. And I've been to his home a few times. And he's a unique character. People might call him a hermit today. Lives by himself and has a lot of stuff. When you go into his house, you go in and you kind of go, and you're afraid to touch anything without some hand sanitizer. And there's a very strong smell in the whole house. It's just like, that doesn't smell good. And his whole property's like that. Well, because I'm in a relationship and I like this person and I care for him, pray for him, someday I'm going to help him walk across the line of faith and trust Jesus. But we're just building a relationship now. We're building trust. Well, normally he drives a side-by-side, one of those little cool little things. And it's his vehicle, right? He has a truck, but I've been aware since the truck hood's been up for about 4 years that it doesn't work. And so he drives this side-by-side thing, and he's with it everywhere. He goes to the grocery store with it. There's a little grocery store about 2 miles from where we live. And he goes to the grocery store, goes everywhere with it. Well, all of a sudden, he's not driving a side-by-side. He's riding one of those electric scooters. But then I discovered that the electrical part doesn't work. And I discovered this when I'm driving and he's right in front of me on the road and he just falls over. And I hop out. I was on the phone with my mom. I said, Mama, hang on. I got to go help somebody. They've just fallen down. Excuse me. And I jumped out and I ran over and says, are you okay? Oh, yeah, I'm all right. He's juggling groceries and hey, I just got a little ways further to go. I said, hey, can I give you a ride home? I'll come back and get your bike. I mean, no, I got it. No worries. I've got it handled. Are you sure? Can I go back? I'll get my pickup. I'll get your bike. No, I'm good. So he pushes his bike home. Then I see him. He's got no bike at all. He's just walking. Now he's got groceries in hand and in bags. And so he's walking down the road and I just pull in front of him. And I kick open the door and I say, get in. He goes, oh, no, get in. So he crawls in, and I go, what is up, brother? Is the bike not working? No. Well, let me take you home. He goes, I just had 2 more blocks to go, but I hate that hill around the corner. And I said, well, today you don't have the hill around the corner. I got you. We pulled into his place, And I said, hey, tell me, what's with the scooter? Stupid thing. Doesn't work. And I go, yeah, I was kind of figuring that out, yeah. What's with the side-by-side? Yeah, it doesn't work either. I said, you got a good mechanic? Somebody's got it right now. They're working on it. I said, you got my number? Do you have food? Here's my number. Make sure you have it. Use it anytime. And when he left, the smell didn't leave right away. It kind of lingered longer. So as a reminder, I could pray for him throughout the day. Oh, yeah. Jesus, my friend. Humility is the ability to live dependently on God, interdependently on others, with a passion to serve anyone. I mean, you ever have that feeling like, I'll serve you, but not you? I'll be kind to them, but not to them. They're the wrong political party. I'll be nice to them, but not them. They're on the wrong side of the tracks. Do we ever make a quick judgment, or maybe not even quick, a deliberate, well thought out, that's the reason I don't like those guys? And Jesus wants to push up against that and say, if you're going to follow me, you've got to master this thing called humility. It changes the way you see yourself, so it changes the way you behave yourself. And when that happens, transformation is happening. God's doing a work on the inside, making you one incremental step at a time, a little more like him. The second one. The second thing that Jesus wants us to recognize whenever we are wanting to improve the way we deliver information is to be gentle. Gentle. And we get gentleness from our giving and receiving direction. This is speck removal. Right? This is the stuff that my wife is good about helping me with. And whenever someone is gentle with whatever it is that's a problem, do you appreciate that? Right? When you receive that, is that the way you want to give back? I mean, certainly it's the way that Jesus would teach us and show us that matters to him is this idea of a gentle response to others makes the world of difference in relationships. Jesus describes himself in Matthew chapter 11, "Come to me all you are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me." Notice how Jesus self-describes himself. Self-described as what? Gentle and humble in heart. And what's the effect? You get rest for your souls. When someone is so loving and they bring something to your attention and you feel a rest in your soul versus a condemnation of your life, you know you've talked to somebody who's spiritually savvy, who's spiritually in sync with God. Maybe it wasn't an easy conversation, but there's something that instead of devaluing you, increased a sense of their value of you. Instead of giving you no hope, they inspired you to hope. Instead of feeling disrespected, you felt more respected because they pointed something out with gentleness and humility. Look how the Apostle Paul tells us to deal with brothers or sisters that are really struggling. In chapter 6, verse 1, he says, do not, brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, I mean, boom, they're caught. They're caught in a sin. If there's any great time for some condemnation, this would be it. Any perfect opportunity for a little contempt, wow, seize the day. But you who are spiritual, restore them how? Gently. But watch yourself. You also could be tempted. That's the humility part. Jesus wants us to address others with humility, with gentleness. And the third and fourth is teachable and merciful. He wants us to be teachable. Teachable is huge. Listen to what the proverb says. It says, whoever accepts correction, that means you can krino me. You can judge me in the right way, assess and evaluate. Whoever receives correction is on the way to life. That's me personally. Look how it translates into community. But whoever ignores correction will lead others astray. Same kind of juxtaposition. Bad judgment is bad for me and it's bad for community. Healthy judgment is good for me and it's good for community. I love what it says in Proverbs 29:6. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, But an enemy multiplies kisses. I think that's where the phrase kiss up came from. I think so. Do people kiss up to you? Oh, I like that. And behind the back, they criticize you. And you're behind your back, they gossip about you. But wounds from a friend that'll tell you straight, that wasn't very good. Oh my gosh, humbly speaking, that didn't go so well. Do you feel good about it yourself? Gosh, could I help you do better? Wounds from a friend can be trusted. The last one is being merciful. And I want to bring us back to that kind of a challenging riddle that Jesus gives at an end. Do not give dogs what is sacred, and do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and tear you to pieces. What's he saying? So in the context of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus is talking to an audience, right? Remember our context? He's talking to an audience. Guess what? His audience are almost exclusively Jewish. They're Jewish, Israelis, they're Jewish. And the Jewish people, at this time, especially in the culture where Jesus is addressing them, they have a perception of anyone who's non-Jewish. And one of those is a little phrase they'll do. They'll say, "You Gentile dogs." Okay? In those days, a dog was not man's best friend, right? So it's not saying, "Here, come here, away." It's not such a good thing, right? But they're outsiders, they're dogs. So Jesus is not trying to be condescending to the outsiders. He's speaking to a group of people that this is how they talk about them. And he says, don't give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls. Pigs and Jews also have kind of an oil and water effect, right? Pigs are unkosher. In both cases, both animals are what are considered ceremonially unclean. And Jews wanted to stay as far away from them as they possibly could. And Jesus says, when it comes to your own critical comments and thoughts, keep them to yourself. Don't disperse them to people who are on the outside. He's talking about unbelieving people don't need your critique. They don't need you to hold them to your standard. I hope it is higher. But you don't have to impose it on them because they've not yet trusted Jesus. They've not yet transferred over from darkness to light. They've just not owned their own ignorance and desired his knowledge. They're not there yet. Don't pour your pearls before them. Jesus wants us to recognize when we do, we push them further away from us because it will be considered criticism, condemnation, contempt, and disrespect. And you never draw someone in with that kind of behavior, do you? Notice what the proverb says. He says, do not rebuke a mocker, or what? He'll hate you. Kind of a similar scenario Jesus describes. But rebuke a wise person and they'll love you for it. You and I are called to be those that are wise, that can receive, even maybe the person wasn't humble, but I'll still receive it. Maybe they weren't as gentle as they could be, I'll still receive it. Because I want to be teachable whether they are or not. And then when it comes to me and delivering information to outsiders, I'm going to hold my tongue because I want to be merciful. Notice what Jesus says in Luke, parallel passage. In the context of not judging, he says, love your enemies, do good to them, lend to them without expecting anything back. You're going, what? Yeah, surprise them with your generosity. Then your reward will be great and you will be children of the Most High. Because this is what your Father looks like. He is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. Jesus is calling you and I to posture ourselves with mercy. You know what mercy is, right? It's when you're dead to rights, but the judge says, acquitted. He had mercy on you. He didn't give you what you deserved. When you and I posture ourselves with people on the outside, my friend, the smell that he had didn't stop me from being merciful. The plight of his house or his property didn't stop me from being merciful. It drew me to him because of the mercy I received. I want to give away. Have you received enough mercy that you want to give it away? Because what a judgmental spirit tells us is we're merciless. We've not received enough. Because when you have, Jesus says, it will just flow away. Sheldon Vanauken, beautiful author, in his book, A Severe Mercy, says, the strongest argument for Christianity is Christians. Their joy, their certainty, their completeness. But the strongest argument against Christianity is also Christians. When they're somber and joyless, when they're self-righteous and smug, when they're in their complacent consecration, then Christianity dies 1,000 deaths. You see, maybe the thing that the person on the outside needs most from you is not your judgment, not your criticism, but a display of a merciful heart and a compassionate set of eyes that has already looked squarely in the mirror at themselves to remove the plank from their own eye so they can be of assistance to the person inside the faith and the person outside the faith. And I believe Jesus is helping you change the way you see yourself. Because when that begins to happen, when you change how you see yourself, you'll change how you behave yourself. Are you seeing yourself from God's eyes? That His beautiful work on the cross made it possible for you to come completely under the shadow of mercy, completely under the grip of grace. Not because of what you've done, but because of what He's done for you, making you His child. So you start out saying, Jesus, I give you my heart. But as we journey on this path of discipleship, we say, Jesus, be king of my heart. Are you ready to make Jesus king? Are you ready to make Jesus king? Thank you. I was wondering if I was just talking to myself for a minute. I'd like to invite just to bow your heads with me and just take a moment, just you and Jesus, right? Think about it, even though we're in a room full of people, thinking about it in terms of that solitude space. And sometimes that's the great thing about just closing your eyes. You can just close your eyes and say, Jesus, it's just you and me right here. Jesus, you and me right here. Jesus, you and me right here. God, I want you to change my heart. God, to see this interior threat that could sabotage the life of flourishing you desire for me. God, help me see it. Help me catch it. Be aware of it so I can break its power. Real time, Jesus, give me deeper awareness of your presence. If you've never said yes to Jesus, you've never accepted the good news that He died for you and covered your sin debt so you could enter into the freedom of this relationship where you experience what's available is nonstop, 100%, day after day, 24/7 acceptance. Unconditional love. You want that? It's called being saved. Coming to the truth of the gospel, the good news that God's got a better plan than yours. And it doesn't start out with harsh judgment. It starts out with amazing grace. So if you've never accepted Him, I just want to invite you to say, Jesus, would you fill my heart today? Would you come in and redeem my brokenness? God, would you rescue me today? Rescue me today. I don't think I know you. I want to know you. And then as we enter into that knowledge of Him, we say, Jesus, I want to be like you. I want to be like you. Give me eyes to see and ears to hear. Break this threat and correct it as I seek to practice humility and gentleness and being teachable and merciful. Would you worship the King of Hearts as we close?
I saw the nails, I heard the hammer, the King of the Jews, carved into a wooden banner that made you crown. You bloodied your temple, you could have come down, but in silence we both trembled. You gave your life, I gave you nothing. You poured me grace, I poured you poison, but still you drank my cup of shame. With all that I've done, could I be forgiven? Is there still a way to enter your kingdom? I'm just a thief beside a king, King of hearts. I looked to my side, I only had seconds. Please remember we met when you're seated high in heaven. He spoke in a whisper, looking deep in my eyes, said, son, this time tomorrow we will be in paradise. You gave your life, I gave you nothing. You poured me grace, that blood keeps on running. The love so great, you took my place. After all that I've done, I've been forgiven. Those scars made away to enter your kingdom on golden streets beside a king, King of the poor, King of the lowly, King of the broken, King of the lonely, King of the hopeless, King of the gone too far, King of hearts, King of the lost, King of the guilty, King of the misfits, King of the filthy, King of the critics, King of a brand new start, King of hearts. Oh,
Yes, Lord. Praise you, God. So good, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Oh, what a blessing, church, to be able to worship God with you, to be able to hear the truths of his word. And now as you depart, the Lord bless you and keep you. His face shine upon you. You are dismissed in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. We're going to continue worshiping the Lord a little bit as you're departing. We also have our prayer team up. If you need support or prayer, please take advantage of that. If you're leaving us, God bless you. Be safe and hope to see you next week. Blessings to you, church.